Today is Thursday, July 23rd, 2020, and this is, this is the Pro and Con Show. Well, there's a little little hint to what I'm covering on the show today, which is an update on the coronavirus epidemic, the pandemic. But anyway, so the purpose of the show is better citizens, right? So open to listening, open to different points of view, and figuring out the facts, the who, the what, the where, and the when, trying to put away some of the emotion and focus on the facts and make our own choices, right? And so those facts include things that we don't like, simply that are true, okay? Pro and con, good and bad, for and against. And I don't care whether you're talking about eating a candy bar or buying a house or getting engaged to a potential spouse or whatever. There's always pro and con, good and bad, for and against. And if you fail to take some time and think it through, you're doing yourself a disservice. And you're doing not only yourself a disservice in this case, where it's us talking about the pandemic or abortion or guns or whatever, you're doing not only yourself, but all of us a disservice, because if you're not open to at least listening to the pro and the con, the good and bad, and the for and against, then you're going to come down on a side of these issues that is not reasonable and rational and appropriate. Okay. So today's show is an update on the coronavirus here in the United States, and that I'm just going to let this sit here on the screen for a second. You can pause the video for a moment if you want to see this image a little bit longer. But basically, the scale here is that the red areas is where the cases are increasing, the green areas are the cases where they're decreasing, and the kind of yellow are not much of a change. The national figures here, and I'm getting this from Apple News, but these are and people get all wrapped around, well, I looked at Johns Hopkins and they say there's 142,000 deaths, not 138,000. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some variation in the data and when they've accumulated it and when they've updated it last. So, but the important thing is to understand that it's something approaching 140,000 deaths here in the United States. Probably more than that, because there's a lot of deaths, especially early on, that were not counted toward COVID-19 because we really didn't understand them. So, people dying from blood clots and, having strokes and things like that. Now it would appear, that we now understand that some of that was driven by COVID-19, and so the deaths are higher. The number of cases are also higher. We know that there's a lot of people that have very mild symptoms and basically go unreported, or no symptoms at all, go unreported, and so they take these little snapshots, and we know that probably 10 times as many people have something like that. And again, it could be 15 times as many, or 12 times as many, or 9 times as many. But there's a lot of people that because their symptoms were mild or non-existent, they actually had acquired and were infected by the COVID-19 virus, coronavirus, but did not, end up being counted in these numbers. And so what does it mean as far as the mortality rate? Well, it means that the actual number of people that are dying from it is a little bit higher. The actual number of people that have had it is quite a bit higher. and it means that, the actual mortality rate, instead of being whatever we think it is now, 3 or 4% or something like that, is maybe only 1% or 0.8%. But still, it's still a big problem, especially because for people that are susceptible to getting extremely ill, this is a virus that kills a very high percentage of people that are elderly, obese, have diabetic issues, these kinds of things. So people that have kind of a weakened condition, they're going to be very badly impacted by this. And the problem is, it'd be great if we all had a little flag on us that said, I've got COVID-19 or I've got the coronavirus, beware. But we don't. And so there's a lot of people walking around, and they can make contact with these folks. So on the weekends, I actually work at a facility. It's a rehab facility and care facility for people. There's people with various ailments and elderly in this facility. And so we're trying very hard to keep, obviously, the coronavirus outside the doors. And so we screen people coming in, and then everyone in the building, all the staff, we're constantly washing our hands, sanitizing our hands. We wear face masks at all times. We wear face shields at all times. And that's all to hopefully prevent the transmission of the coronavirus to some of the residents by accident, obviously. I mean, none of us would do it intentionally, but by accident, you might feel well, but you might actually be infectious with the coronavirus. And the mask and the shield and washing your hands all the time basically mitigates your ability to transmit the virus. And the reality is that if all of us around the country did those things religiously, just were wearing them all the time, this coronavirus thing would collapse. But right now it's on the increase. And so here's a chart that shows that we were making some progress, and then things started to go down a little bit in May and June, and then now that July has come, it's taking off again, unfortunately. And then there's the states. Let me see, there's a list of states here, and okay, so Florida is really spiking. So, and again, some of the news sources, so-called news sources that you folks watch or listen to, they will just say this isn't true. These things aren't true. It is true. Florida has had considerable increases in the coronavirus, as has Texas, as has California. And these are big numbers. It's almost 10,000 new cases in the last week in these locations. New York, so they have a total of all of these big states, Florida, Texas, and California, now approaching around 400,000 total cases so far of coronavirus. New York, which was one of the bad places at the time, this is a couple months ago, they have a total of around 400,000, but their increase in cases in the past week was only about 900. So they've taken a lot of steps, and the awareness, I believe, in New York is much higher because it was so prevalent that people took it seriously. And this is what if you want to avoid, I don't know where you're watching from, where you're living, but if you want to avoid having this become a serious issue, you have to do some simple things. And yes, it's inconvenient, but better a little bit of inconvenience than to have, to eventually lose someone that's, close and dear to you because, you were not willing to take a few simple things. So again, washing your hands on a regular basis, thoroughly washing your hands, wearing a mask, especially anytime you're going to be around anyone, wear a mask. And then if you want to really do an extra part when you're out and about, wear a face shield. That's another layer of protection of people from you, even though you're not sure that you're infectious. But this is all true. This is, and again, the numbers. Don't get wrapped up into, the New York Times said that California was 410,000 and you said it's 400,000. Oh, you guys, get your story straight. Now, those numbers, are different because, again, there's slight differences in when the numbers are updated and the sources of the information and stuff like that. But the reality is all of this is true. So, the other parts of it is the pandemic is going to stay with us for a while because we're not doing a very good job on a national level as citizens of taking this seriously, of wearing masks, of staying away from other people, and we're not doing a very good job on a national level of communicating that, and we're for sure not doing a very good job on a national level of testing. So this is another thing where some people, including our president, doesn't want people tested because it means that it validates that the cases are increasing, and he doesn't want that because it makes him look bad politically, he thinks. But the reality is he would look great politically if he would finally embrace that this is going on and really work on like massive levels of testing and contact tracing and stuff like this to really help mitigate. And this is where the testing and the tracing of people and where they've been and finding out people around them and whether or not they're infected with coronavirus. This is where the government, the federal government, could really, really, really help us, the citizens of this country. And unfortunately, they are not. Okay, so for Thursday, July 23rd, I am Michael James Ott. Thanks for watching the show. Stay safe out there. Wash your hands a lot. Wear a mask. And if you're willing, wear a face shield. Do that distance thing. Be careful. Be careful out there. All right?